Awesome. Well, welcome out to the Homeowner podcast. Today we got McKay Shelley. He's joining us, and we'll tell you all about him and all of what he does. Obviously, this is Joel, and I'm Justin. And basically, McKay, I was reading over your notes, and I'm learning some pretty cool things about you that I didn't even know. But serial entrepreneur who's built businesses from auto repair, antique firearm restoration, e-commerce, and construction. And that's your main one right now is the construction.
Yep. Construction, yep.
So Shelley Construction, Utah-based company specializing in insurance restorations, roofing, basement finishes, and they put a huge emphasis on like the technology surrounding it and getting things very systemized, very easy for people to use, which my clients love and I love as well. But yeah, you're a real estate investor. You do money lending. You do real estate projects. You grew up around house hacks, which is really cool. So honestly, we're just super excited to ask you some questions, get your thoughts, and just get to know you a whole lot better.
Awesome. Appreciate it. Excited to be here.
Yeah. So honestly, the first question that we always love to jump off with and just kind of see how it goes is, how did you first learn about house hacking?
Yeah, so that's an interesting question. My parents actually, they had a house hack ever since I was a little kid. They were renting out their first home. Like a lot of young families, they didn't have a ton of money. They had 6 kids, so they were trying to get grocery money and things like that. So they were renting out their basement or upstairs, depending on what kind of era we were in. And every single month, I saw them making extra payments towards their mortgage, which was awesome because they didn't have a lot of extra money. And a goal that they had all through my childhood was to get out of debt and just be financially self-reliant. And so I saw a great example of that. And it was, my parents, they introduced me to that.
That is so cool to see it firsthand that close. That's awesome.
Were your parents big Dave Ramsey fans?
I don't know if my parents even knew who Dave Ramsey was. You have to remember, we live in an information age where it's so easy to get video reels and YouTube videos of people. But
yeah.
I mean, my parents, they were growing up back when there's black and white TV.
Going to the library.
Making your parents sound old.
Yeah.
So from a contractor's perspective, what things does a house need to be a great house hack?
Yeah, that's a great question. From a contractor standpoint, I would say you want your home to be attractive to potential clients. And so I'd say an updated kitchen, clean, modern amenities. It's nice to not be living on top of somebody. And so if you have a decent parking situation, maybe separate driveways or at least room for the vehicles, that can be big. Biggest thing is just a good, clean, nice environment. I don't think you need to go over the top on like luxuries, but just a nice place that's marketable.
Thank you for saying that. It blows my mind how many people try to build Ritz-Carlton ADUs. And I'm like, you are targeting the wrong people for your basement rental.
Oh, yeah. It's funny because I actually had a post that I made on social media about this exact same topic. And I had people that disagreed, because everybody always does. But if you buy a $500 faucet because you think it looks pretty, tenants aren't going to think it's $500. They're going to think it's like $80 maybe. So they're going to treat it like it's $80. And then when it breaks, who's responsible? Like now you have to go source it. You have to go, like it's just such a headache. Like you don't want absolute garbage, but get something that's nice without being too bougie. I love that you said that. But one question that I constantly run into, kind of similar to the over upgrading of a house, is people are always looking for the cheapest dude to do the work. So from your perspective, what are some of the biggest pitfalls that you see by hiring the wrong contractor to get an ADU set up or to do like kitchen remodels? Just what are some of the pitfalls that you typically see?
There's a lot of different trades that go into a basement ADU or basement finishing. You think about it, it's almost like building a home. You've got your framers, all of your mechanical trades, drywall, paint, flooring. And so you need somebody that can really keep a good project timeline. There's a lot of trades to factor in. On top of that, as an owner of a construction company, I deal firsthand with contractors that live hand to mouth, that don't even have money to fund their own projects. And so those guys, they're trying to get it and start as many projects as possible. They're robbing Peter to pay Paul. They're using your deposit, maybe from your project on another project, and somebody else's project deposit for your project. And it can be scary because project deadlines can be pushed way out. Sometimes these contractors disappear. There's unexpected things that happen in construction. And so what kind of company do you have standing behind the work being done? Is it a company that can quickly resolve what's taken place and fix it and get your home completed? Or is it a contractor or a company that's going to be dodging your calls? I like to watch the news. On KSL News here in the last month, they did an article on contractors that have been scamming people, taking deposits, not doing work, and at the end of the day, it's fraud, right? Mm-hmm. It's theft, and so it's like I can appreciate, like anybody else, trying to find a good, a good low bid. You want to be keeping budget in mind, but you really want to focus on the value that you're getting at the end of the day.
Right, because it's always I feel like it's twice as expensive to fix a bad job than it would have been to just do it right the first time. But the one thing that I always hear people say is like, oh, I just want the cheapest bid. I know it's not going to be good, but anybody who's good is going to be like so much more expensive. Do you find that that's always the case?
No, I don't. Our company, we do a great job. And like you had mentioned, we're very focused on being at the forefront of technology. And so being able to provide quick bids quickly, and cost-effective, efficiently. In the past, we had employees that would take 2 full days to bid out all of the subcontractors and to get pricing and put together a project timeline. We're about a month away from being able to provide those in about 15 minutes. And even right now, we can provide a bid within a couple of days. And those couple of days, it's not a couple of days of employee labor. It's a couple of days of maybe waiting for special prices to come back on maybe some of those things that make a project a little bit more unique.
Yeah, love that.
And I like how you're like actually going out to get bids versus just quoting something out of thin air of like, I think it's going to be this much. What do you call it when a contractor comes back and says we need like another $5,000? Change order, a change order. Yeah, those darn change orders. Yep. But like,
we don't like change orders.
That's why it's important to budget right the first time.
Absolutely.
So we keep talking about like, this is a big financial investment. What do you say to someone who asks like, is this financial investment worth it? Like, how can you tell the value you're getting out of it?
Well, you want to assess every situation, and so every home, is it a good candidate for a house hack to begin with? Mm-hmm. Do they have some of those things we talked about, like parking? Do they have room for a kitchenette? Is it in a desirable place? To rent out. Yeah. From there, you need to kind of think about your future goals. How long are you planning to live here for? Future equity growth. Is, if you're going to hold this home for 10 or 15 years, well, let's say that it has an unfinished basement right now. Well, that home with a finished basement is going to be worth more. And so I'm very analytical. It drives my wife crazy sometimes. But I love to put numbers down on like a spreadsheet and look at, okay, what is my home worth right now? What will it be worth once I do this improvement and upgrade? What kind of rents am I going to be getting? And a lot of this stuff can be kind of complex. Mm-hmm. And so, I've done this stuff and I rely very, very heavily on guys like Justin, and Joel, I'm just meeting you for the first time today, but, guys like you guys that you guys are involved with this stuff on the daily. And so I try to do as much as I can, get a project, as far forward as possible, and then lean on the professionals.
So to recap, 2 value props to really consider. The first is the short-term rental value you'll get out of finishing the ADU. And the second is, when I sell this home, how much appreciation or equity can I gain from having finished the
Absolutely.
ADU? Okay, very well
Honestly,
said.
Those are pretty dang good metrics to follow. My analytical brain is loving that. So So seeing that you finish a lot of these basements and you've grown up around house hacking, you really understand the concept. Would you say that house hacking is the future of affordable housing?
Housing affordability is a huge issue. As everybody knows here in Utah,
Hot topic.
You'd have to be living under a rock to not be aware of that. It's gotten tricky to buy homes. And so the median home price right now for most homes, it's above what a lot of first-time home buyers can afford. And so, that leaves people a few options. You've got to kind of figure out, okay, if we want to take part in the American dream and figure out how to get into a home, how are we going to do it? What are we going to do? I think house hacking can be a really good way to do that. You can greatly reduce your mortgage by putting, those profits towards that mortgage. I've seen situations. I was working one of these for about 3 years ago, a deal where I was going to have no mortgage payment. My family and I, we were going to live in a single unit of a non-conforming sixplex, and we were going to rent out the rest to cover, the whole mortgage.
Yeah.
And so it's a great way to get into a home, to pay down that mortgage, and you can always, do other house hacks, scale it, or get into a single family home in the future.
Non-conforming sixplex. What does that even look like?
Non-conforming.
All of the neighbors were okay with it. It was a family. They had 15 kids.
Wow.
Oh my God.
15 kids, and they had just built on to this huge. They had a big property. They built on unit after unit after unit. And as their kids were growing up, they'd kind of take a place and
It's like homesteading.
it was. It really was. Talking about helping out family with housing affordability.
Wow, that's insane.
Yeah, I would love to see that. So with house hackers, what would you say is the most underrated benefit that most people overlook?
I'd say it's the education that comes from house hacking. I come from a business background. I love business. I love scaling deals. The things that you learn, I don't know if a lot of people realize this when they get into their first house hack, but you're learning property management, how to find good tenants, how to budget for expenses, and all of that education that you're gaining. You can compile that and scale it even bigger. For a lot of people, they just want to help to pay their mortgage, which I think is great. But for some people, maybe people like me, I think, okay, I did this successfully once. How can I do this 100 times at the end of the day?
That's actually a really good point. Most people are always just focused on how low can my mortgage get, but there's all these life skills that come with it
Right.
on top of it. Yeah.
It's like, it really is like taking a whole degree of education that you could go pay hundreds of thousands of dollars for, but instead you're getting paid to learn that in your own home. Like, you don't have to go to classes, you don't have to take tests. It's just right there, real time.
Absolutely.
So what kind of advice would you give somebody who is looking to start house hacking so that they can prepare to do a great job?
Yeah, the advice that I would give is don't wait for the perfect deal. I'm 33. I turned 34 this month, and I would be retired by now if I would have started when I thought about starting, years ago, in buying properties and things like that, and house hacking. And so find a good, qualified person that can help you find a good home to live in, to make a home that you can house hack, where the numbers crunch, they make sense, and pull the trigger. A lot of people, I think, go into a house hack kind of thinking of the finish line. This isn't, your first home isn't going to be the finish line. It's going to be the starting point. You can always get better. You can always do things better. So just get started.
Dude, I love that. If I could put that on a t-shirt, I would.
Just get started.
Yep, get started. Just do it.
Would you look at that?
Yeah, because we work with a lot of people who it is a little nerve-wracking. Like one thing we say is like sticker shock, right? Like seeing that mortgage number, and then once you run through the numbers, you still see that like, wow, I'm actually saving a ton, but they're still so nervous to do it. Maybe it's not the perfect house hack that is holding them back. But from your experience, what makes people less nervous about pulling the trigger on something like this?
It's a great question. Well, let me follow up with a question first.
Okay.
What age demographic do you guys feel are looking at house hacking the most?
Honestly, I think from the experience that I've had, it's between 22 and about mid 30s. Once it's past mid
22
30s,
to 35.
they, for whatever reason, just aren't super interested in that anymore.
Yeah. Okay. Awesome. So a lot of these people haven't purchased homes before. They're looking to get into their first home. They're looking at the house hack, for affordability reasons. I think, as part of, I'd call it the adulting process, getting out of your parents' home, making life decisions, getting a credit card, getting a car, which a lot of that does, flow into your 20s. I do. I think you just got to kind of get going. I think association plays a big part in that. If you've got friends that are buying homes and focused on that, I think that can help. Biggest thing is, if you just don't know where to start, if you're 25 years old, you want to buy a home, start talking about it. Get around people that are buying houses that, either friends or realtors, brokers, and just make a move. Once you make that move, it's easy to keep going and to keep moving forward.
The way that I think of it is once you make that move, you realize it's not actually that scary. Like in business, when you finally get things started, you're like, crap, I could have done this a decade ago. Like, why did I put it off so long? I find the same thing happens when people are buying houses is they'll look at it and they'll be like, gosh, I wish I would have bought a house in 2019. I was totally able to do it. I had the means. I just was waiting for like the perfect deal or the perfect house, and it never came, and now they're regretting it. And it's just, once you take that step, you realize that it's not actually that scary, and you're not like pinned up against the wall. You actually, it's people make it out to be a way bigger deal than what I think it needs to, I think is what I'm trying to say.
And McKay brought up a good point. There's a huge knowledge gap. And so just talking to people and get exposed to it. So at HomeLord, we do a lot of free classes, not just to teach about house hacking, but real estate strategies in general. And it's the craziest thing at the end of the class, like people's eyes are just like wide open to like, oh my gosh, like I had no idea that this was even possible. And then it comes down to the execution. But finding that knowledge is so hard today, which it sounds crazy because real estate has been around for so long, kind of like your parents were doing it, but like no one really talked about house hacking back then.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's one of those things where even, because you had mentioned this earlier, we are in like the information age. You can look things up on YouTube and do all kinds of stuff, but there's so many conflicting thoughts. It's like, who do you trust? And then you get over analytical, and then you get over stressed, and then you're just like, the answer to this is to just not take action because I'm too stressed. And it could be so much simpler if you're just around the right people. So I love that.
Absolutely. And the advice that I'd give to people, if you aren't around the right people right now, one way that you can find the right people, a couple of years ago, I decided that I wanted to broaden my network in the real estate community. I got on Facebook and I literally typed in real estate groups. I don't even remember all the keywords, but it was very, very basic, okay, very elementary. And one of the groups that came up was your group, Justin. And Joel, maybe you're involved with that group as well. Yep. Cool, awesome.
He is now.
I am now, yeah. I got the invite.
I love it. Yeah, and so, I looked up those groups, I joined them, and then I saw some event posts that you had put up for some of these classes that you mentioned, Joel. And I went to them. I met Justin, met some other awesome people. And so, that was a great opportunity for me to brush shoulders with some awesome people. If you are wanting to purchase a home or get into a house hack situation and you're not around the right people, type it into Facebook, look up those groups. Find these events, meet realtors, like these guys, and find someone you want to work with.
Yeah, do your research. It's crazy how easy it is just to be like, I need this, and most of the time you can actually find it. And that's one of the goals we have here at HomeLord is anytime anyone's like, what is house hacking? how to house hack, free info near me. Like, we want to be the people who show up because we actually know what we're doing.
Yeah, it's true.
I love that.
It's true. And there's the prep, is it prep talk? Pep talk. The pep talk that I give everybody when they're going through this process is, it's going to feel scary. It's going to feel like it's moving so fast. You're going to be lying awake in bed going like, what am I doing with my life? Am I making a big mistake? Am I going to be bankrupt? Like, that's normal regardless. Whether you're buying a normal house or a house hack, you're going to have those thoughts, but you might as well lean towards the one that's going to make you more money and be cheaper for you to live in. Like, there's plenty in the world that you could be scared or afraid to learn. But if you just start taking the steps in the right direction, surround yourself with the people like you did, it just makes things so much smoother and easier for you in the long run. You just look back and you're grateful you did it.
Yeah, I put off buying my first home for years because I didn't think I'd qualify, to be able to buy a home. With the introduction that you gave just in the beginning, I've been a serial entrepreneur for much of my career, and as a lot of self-employed people are aware of, it can be hard to get bank loans. It's a lot harder than if you work a job, if you're an employee somewhere. And I remember I got acquainted with now a very, very good friend of mine, a realtor. And again, I had no reason to believe that I'd qualify for a home loan. And he and his wife, they crunched a bunch of the numbers. I opened up my books to them, and they're like, okay, we've got a way that we can creatively make this work and make this happen. And until the day that we got the keys and signed on the dotted line, or the many dotted lines, I didn't think it was possible, and it happened. And so we know that homes are expensive now. Interest rates are high. I think a lot more people can afford and can get into a home than are currently aware.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Everybody, I feel like there's just too much fear in the news. News is saying, oh, housing is the worst it's ever going to be. This bubble's going to pop. All of these things are going to go wrong. But if you take a step back and you look at things very analytically, you realize that there's actually loads of opportunity out there right now. And it's ironic because right now we're in a market that very heavily leans towards benefiting the buyer. And everybody was talking about how good it would have been to buy during COVID when it was easily benefiting the seller. Like, no concessions over asking price, and everybody's like, oh, I should have bought a home back then. How backwards is that? Because right now you're getting concessions, you're getting rate buy downs, you're getting all of these other incentives, and people are trying to instill fear on you to not take action. It's just bewildering to me.
It always makes sense to buy. In every market, it's just the strategy that changes. And so as we've seen, the strategy has changed a lot versus 5 years ago. And so there's a lot, much more creative finance deals now. There are more of these buyer concessions and things. I've seen a lot of new home builders offering phenomenal rates.
Yeah.
I've seen some really exciting things happening out in the Saratoga Springs market. Flagship Homes and Edge Homes. I mean, they've been doing awesome stuff. So,
yeah, I like that. It's always a good time to be buying. It's just strategy, because I actually use that a lot in what I tell people. And the first thing people fire back at is like, well, what about 2008? Was it a good time to buy then? And I'm like, yeah, absolutely. Everything's on sale. You're able to probably get in there with like seller financing terms, get in with no money down. You can just absorb all of these people's houses, take over their payments. People still needed a place to rent. Rents statistically went up during that time. So you could get the house, rent it out, and within 10 years, the market was fully recovered on average across the country. So depending on where you bought, you could have bought a bunch of these houses for zero money down. Tenants would be paying down your principal. After 10 years, you have all this equity, you sell all the houses out, you make money for literally spending none. And when I try to help people understand that complex theory in one little tidbit, they're like, wow, so it really can make sense to buy in any market. I'm like, yeah, it really does. So,
yeah, real estate, it's not day trading. It should be more of a buy and hold. But everyone that's held on to real estate long enough, they've seen the financial benefit.
No, the guys that I know that have been doing real estate, buying real estate for the last 30 years, they don't ever try to time the market or stop and start. They're always buying every opportunity that they get.
100%.
I know we're getting up on time, but I did want to ask, because you come off as a very organized landlord, and I mean that as a compliment given your background.
I would say.
So do you have any like high level landlord tips for people, first time landlords trying to be like, how do I like manage this whole chaotic process?
Yeah, be very picky with your tenants, with finding the right people. I run a tight ship. Even going back to my days when I had roommates and was subleasing, rentals that I was renting, I'd put together my own contracts, and so I'd be signing a contract. I'd have my roommate signing contracts, and I'd be very explicit on what I allowed and didn't allow. And yeah, like I can't overemphasize the importance of running your numbers. A couple years ago, like deals that I thought would pencil or break even, in hindsight, I would have been $200 to $300 negative cash flow every month, which for some people don't mind that, depending on the strategy of the buy. But for other people, that could break the deal. Mm-hmm. And so just be very careful with your numbers. Lean against people who know what they're doing. Focus on finding those good tenants. And as far as being a good landlord, I think you attract the type of people that your property represents. And so I always keep my yard manicured. If you walk into my home, the paint looks nice, it smells good. The floors are clean. And if I get a tenant that starts trashing it, and I'm doing an inspection, or I always find ways to get into the home. So maybe I'm adjusting the sprinkler clock or something, and if there's no cats allowed and it smells like cat pee, then we know we have a problem and we have a tenant that's not, working out.
So make sure your property represents the kind of tenants you want to attract. Run your numbers. Just one of my biggest pet peeves is people always love basing their rent on their payment, which has nothing to do with what the market will pay for. So I'm glad you run your numbers. And then be picky with your tenants, and then frequent inspections to make sure whatever agreement you have in place is being held.
Absolutely.
Yeah, if you do those 4 things, chances are things will go very well for you from the landlord side.
Very much so. Well, McKay, we have really liked getting to know you a whole lot better, and your story, your experience with investing, house hacking, general contracting, and all of these things. So thank you for giving us your knowledge and wisdom. Yeah, that pretty much wraps it up.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. I
Thanks for
appreciate
coming.
it.